This is Andrew Quint, a senior writer for The Absolute Sound, and I'm visiting today with Mark Conti, who is International Sales Manager for MC Audiotech. Mark is based outside of Philadelphia, and I live in the city, so on a sunny, crisp Sunday morning, it was an easy trip to join him to learn more about the company's new product, the TL-12 Loudspeaker. This speaker made its world debut at Capitol Audio Fest last November. It meets the world as a solid yet elegant appearing floor stander, about 4 feet in height and priced at $24,900 per pair. I've heard the TL-12 in action with a range of music on several occasions now, and though the auditions so far have been brief, I feel the speaker acquitted itself quite well. Before hearing more about the TL-12 though, I wanted to extract a little history. MC Audiotech may have been founded in 2018, releasing its first product, the striking 4010 loudspeaker, the following year, but this isn't Mark Conti's first rodeo. Not for him, not for his engineering partner Paul Paddock, and not for the unique patented WBLS driver, that's wideband line source, that has been the primary design feature for several generations of speakers produced by several different companies. Many audiophiles remember this technological innovation, which Paddock has been refining now for 4 decades, as the Lineum driver. Mark, could you describe the operating principle of the transducer as well as its history in audio products?
Yes, and thank you for coming out. I wanted to use a little display device here. It helps to understand. This is a pair of membranes that are designed so that they are bonded in the center around a voice coil, custom made for this. And these devices can play anywhere from 300 hertz on up to 20K, and do so with the finest high-end frequencies coming from the center, and then the bass coming from the side as it radiates out. It's a very, very good device, and in a line source array, it tends to give very precise imaging. So this is the device that Paul has worked on and made many devices like it. Relative to when this design first hit the market, we're talking late 1980s with Lineum from Portland, Oregon. And there was basically this single style driver. Later, it was augmented by a tweeter. That tweeter was in Lineum product, but also was introduced with a project with Radio Shack, Tandy. The Tandy project basically involved several smaller loudspeakers only using the tweeter. Some of them were reasonably good. Some of them were not. They were designed at a price point, clearly. After that progressed, Lineum did more work in the high-end audio world, but gradually that company had some changes and they stopped producing product. After that, there was a decidedly different device, but still same principle, that was introduced in a speaker that we made called, and I worked with Paul on this, we made the Airfoil. It was a tall tower-like speaker with many drivers. Again, kind of a high-end assault at the world. And then, after a gap, Paul and I came back together with MC Audiotech. Again, interesting product that we were working from a bespoke type device, something that was costly and interesting, as you said, the 4010. Our market now has changed. We are working to go through dealers. We are working to sign up dealers. And to that end, we introduced the TL-12.
Other than matters of industrial design, the mid-century modern looks of the 4010 appeal strongly to some consumers, but not to everyone. Are there fundamental ways in which the TL-12 is a departure from your first product?
A good question. The answer is yes and no. The yes is, I'll come back to, it's more a little philosophical state of how we believe loudspeakers should be designed. But in general, they look quite different. The 4010 has multiple drivers in an array, which gives one set of characteristics, but does not produce as tight an imaging specification as people often seem to desire. So what we did is we designed a speaker that has no external amplifiers, no external crossover. We drive with a single amplifier from your normal approach, and we essentially cross over at 300 hertz. 300 hertz with our broad bandwidth drivers on the top and a single 12-inch transmission line on the bottom.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Martin, executive publisher of The Absolute Sound and a reviewer here on the TAS YouTube channel. I'd like to make you aware of an offer to get our weekly newsletter simply by providing your email address through the link that's on screen right now, or there's a link in the show notes below. Twice a week, we will send you written audio reviews, music reviews, news of new audio gear, and our 3 times a year Editor's Choice, Product of the Year, and Golden Ear awards so that you can find the best audio equipment that's currently on the market. It's easy to sign up, and we hope you'll join us. Now back to the show.
Is there an ideal room then to bring the TL-12 into in terms of typical domestic listening space? What's too big and what's too small?
Too small I can address rather quickly. If you have a room that's below 14 or 15 foot wide, I don't think the speaker will thrive as well in terms of imaging and depth and things like that. As far as too large, we have had these products in shows where we have 25, 30 feet in a big room. They're obviously set up in the center of that room at some appropriate distance from each other. But filling a large room like that might be 25 by 35 or so, is plenty easy to do, even at this level. The larger speaker has more oomph, but I highly doubt that you really need it.
That actually leads to my next question, which is, what would you say are the speaker's requirements for amplification? Have you tried them much with tubes, for example? And have you considered a powered version of the loudspeaker?
Yes, answering those in reverse. We have not considered a powered speaker naturally on the woofer, just because the woofer is very benign load, 91, 92 dB, easy to drive, transmission line style device, which I think I mentioned already. And we just don't feel the need to make a speaker more complicated than it needs to be. Now, again, this comes back to the efficiencies. We are in a world now where people feel like they need much, much larger loudspeakers to drive the speakers themselves, which are less efficient than some of us might think we need. So this is a 92 dB system. This is 8 ohms from top to bottom, and it's also non-reactive. In other words, it doesn't change relative to the type of amplifier. And that's important. It means, frankly, what it means is that there's less difference between tube and solid state with this amp, or with this speaker. The speaker is not driving the amp into an area where you're going to see those kinds of deficiencies. And I think that's kind of an important thing. Again, crossovers being low, in this case 300, efficiencies being quite high.
A lot of flexibility for users then.
Absolutely.
Since this new model is much more conventional looking than the previous one, it seems reasonable to ask about what the standard finishes are that you're offering for the TL-12.
Yes, and I look at some notes here, but we're typically looking at cherry, curly maple, walnut. These are finishes we have done to this point. Fortunately, this speaker is set up that for some upcharge, we can do almost any veneer with this speaker. And again, we are a company that has production that is geared to be able to reflect what a customer wants. So we can do much in the way of veneers. What I will say is, and not at this moment, but we're looking forward to getting suppliers to paint speakers for us, because that seems to be also a popular approach these days.
What's coming in terms of expanding the product line for MC Audiotech?
No, thank you. It's a really good question. Clearly, if one only makes a bespoke, expensive product, you know, it's simple. When you begin to produce more products, there's a sense of having an identity. What does the product do? So the current TL-12 will be augmented by a speaker that has a single driver up top with an 8-inch woofer at the bottom, a transmission line. And this will be obviously for people with smaller spaces that they need to fill, people that perhaps may not listen to certain kinds of music at huge volumes, whether that be Mahler or, in any event.
People with condo associations.
Yeah, condo associations tend to get a little upset with that. And also space. I mean, we're going to come out with a product that is lower in size and so forth. In terms of output, and this is early on the drawing board, in terms of output, our new smaller speaker, which is yet to be seen, will be very close to this in terms of total output. This is an area that Paul, the designer, knows a lot about, in that the very first Lineum loudspeaker had a single driver and an 8-inch transmission line. And so we're going to replicate that, but with much higher level technology and capacity and so forth and so on. Moving forward from that, down the road, we will probably offer a stand-mounted speaker, potentially a stand-mounted speaker, even with a subwoofer that could be added to it if someone wanted that. And probably very last, we will revisit the 4010 loudspeaker, putting some of the new elements that we've learned in that package, making that a better top-end view of the company.
I understand that you're successfully lining up dealers now, a business model that you really haven't considered before, despite years in the industry. Right now, if a consumer thinks that they could be interested in an MC Audiotech loudspeaker because of what they've heard at a show or read about the product or perhaps even seen in a video, how do they proceed?
Also a good question. First of all, my contact information is on our website. It's easy enough to find. And I would always appreciate a call, because I'm the one who will know where we have dealers that we can send you to. We have signed up a number now, but again, that's a process that on both sides takes time. People need to get to know each other and understand how a product fits for them. But with our original number of years with the 4010, when we were doing that factory direct, we had an arrangement, and that arrangement will continue until we have enough dealers to satisfy, which is, if you want to hear it, call me. If there's no dealer anywhere in your area, we will cover plane fare to come here so that you can listen to the product. Maybe an overnight involved and so forth, but that we'll let that be to you. But I think that offer to visit us helps for folks who don't have a dealer in their general neighborhood.
Well, thank you, Mark, for this information. Mark Conti and the TL-12 loudspeaker will be at the Florida Audio Expo in Tampa next month. So if you'll be attending that show, be sure to get a good listen to an interesting design that serves music very, very well. I think you'll be impressed. This is Andrew Quint for The Absolute Sound. Until the next time.